October 1716, Berlin. Prussian King Frederick William I hands a set of carved amber panels to Tsar Peter the Great as a gift meant to seal an alliance against Sweden. The panels weigh nearly 6 tons in total. They are backed in gold leaf and studded with semi-precious stones. Peter accepts them without hesitation. He has no palace built to hold them yet. For years, the panels sit in storage in St. Petersburg, packed in crates, forgotten by all but a handful of court officials. Then, in 1755, Empress Elizabeth orders them installed in the Catherine Palace at Tsarskoye Selo. Italian craftsman Alexander Martelli is brought in to expand the original panels to fit a room 4 times their original size. Mirrors, gold carvings, and additional amber are added over the following decades. By the time the work is finished, the chamber covers more than 180 square feet. Visitors call it the 8th wonder of the world. Sunlight through the windows makes the amber glow amber, gold, and honey brown, shifting through the day as the light moves. For nearly 2 centuries, the room survives revolutions, wars, and the fall of an empire. Then, in June 1941, Nazi Germany invades the Soviet Union. Curators at Tsarskoye Selo know what is coming. They try to dismantle the amber panels for evacuation. The amber has grown brittle with age. It begins to crumble the moment anyone attempts to remove it from the walls. With German forces closing in, the curators make a desperate choice. They paper over the amber and hope it passes as a plain wall. The plan fails within weeks. German soldiers find the room in September 1941, tear the panels down themselves, and pack them into 27 crates within 36 hours. The crates are loaded onto trucks and driven west, out of Russian territory, toward the Baltic coast. Their destination is Königsberg, capital of East Prussia, a city the Nazis consider historically and culturally German soil. What nobody in Russia knows yet is that they will never see the room again in its original form. The amber room arrives in Königsberg Castle in November 1941. Museum director Alfred Rohde, an amber scholar himself, personally oversees its reassembly. He treats the panels as a personal triumph, evidence that Germany has reclaimed something rightfully its own. Rohde puts the room on public display within the castle by 1942. For nearly 2 years, it draws visitors, officials, and propaganda photographers. It becomes a symbol of German conquest in the East, presented as amber finally returned to Germanic hands after 2 centuries in Russia. Rohde writes admiring letters about the room's restoration to colleagues in Berlin, describing the difficulty of matching new backing materials to the fragile original amber, because Königsberg sits close to the Eastern Front, and because the war is turning against Germany by 1943. Questions begin circulating among museum staff about whether the room should be moved again for safekeeping. Rohde resists. He believes Königsberg Castle, with its thick medieval walls, offers sufficient protection. This decision will prove catastrophic. By the summer of 1944, Allied bombing raids intensify across East Prussia. On the night of August 29, 1944, British bombers strike Königsberg in a massive incendiary raid. The castle catches fire. Contemporary accounts differ on what happens to the amber room during this raid. Some witnesses claim the panels survived the bombing largely intact, protected in a lower gallery. Others insist the fire reaches the room and damages it severely. Rohde, in a letter written shortly afterward, states the room has survived, though he notes some of the amber has been scorched. Whichever account is accurate, one fact is certain: the amber room is still inside Königsberg Castle as Soviet forces approach the city in early 1945. This is the last confirmed sighting of the complete room by anyone whose testimony survives. Because of this single fact, everything that follows becomes speculation built on fragments. In January 1945, with the Red Army closing in, German authorities order the evacuation of valuables from Königsberg. Some crates are loaded onto ships bound for Western Germany. Others are packed onto trains that never reach their destinations because Allied bombing has destroyed the rail lines. Some items are buried in mine shafts, castle cellars, and underground bunkers across the region, hidden in the chaos of a collapsing front. Whether the Amber Room's panels were among any of these evacuation efforts remains unknown. Alfred Rode, the one man who might have definitively known the room's fate, stays in Königsberg through the Soviet siege. The city falls on April 9, 1945, after weeks of brutal urban combat that reduce much of it to rubble. When Soviet investigators reach the castle in the following weeks, they find it gutted by fire, its upper floors collapsed. There is no sign of the Amber Room. Soviet officials interview Rode directly in the ruins of the city. He tells them the room was destroyed in the fire, that nothing of it survived. Then, within months, Rode and his wife both die under circumstances Soviet investigators find suspicious. Official records list the cause as typhus. No death certificates are ever produced. No bodies are definitively identified through independent examination. Soviet investigators, already skeptical of German claims that priceless art has simply vanished into ash, become convinced Rode is hiding the truth or has been silenced by someone who wanted the secret buried with him. The Soviet government forms a dedicated commission to search for the Amber Room within a year of the war's end. Investigators comb through Königsberg Castle's ruins, which by now sit inside territory renamed Kaliningrad, absorbed into the Soviet Union outright. They interview surviving German officials, museum staff, and prisoners of war. They excavate cellars, tunnels, and rumored hiding spots throughout the region. They find nothing resembling the amber panels. Over the following decades, the search becomes something closer to legend than archaeology. Treasure hunters claim to have located the room in salt mines in Thuringia. Others insist it lies at the bottom of a Baltic Sea shipwreck, aboard a vessel sunk while attempting to carry looted art out of East Prussia. In 1997, a German art detective locates a single mosaic panel from the room in the possession of a family whose relative had served as a soldier in Königsberg during the war. The panel is authenticated and returned to Russia, offering the first physical proof in decades that fragments of the room did survive the war in someone's private hands. This discovery reignites international interest, but resolves nothing about the fate of the room as a whole. Investigators, journalists, and amateur historians pursue theory after theory across the following years. One claims the panels were hidden in a bunker beneath Königsberg that has since been sealed by post-war construction. Another claims Soviet soldiers themselves looted the room during the chaos of the city's fall, selling pieces on black markets that scattered them permanently. A third theory holds that the panels burned completely in the August 1944 raid, and every search since has chased a ghost. No excavation, no interview, and no archive discovery has definitively confirmed any of these accounts. Meanwhile, Russian officials make a different decision. Rather than continue searching indefinitely, they commit to rebuilding the room from historical photographs, written descriptions, and surviving fragments. Work begins in 1979 using Soviet artisans, trained specifically in the same amber carving techniques used by the original 18th century craftsmen. The project stalls repeatedly due to funding shortages through the 1980s and the economic collapse following the Soviet Union's dissolution in 1991. German companies eventually contribute funding to finish the reconstruction, a gesture partly aimed at historical reconciliation given Germany's role in the original theft. After 24 years of work and an estimated cost exceeding $11 million, the reconstructed Amber Room opens to the public at the Catherine Palace in May 2003, timed to coincide with the 300th anniversary of the founding of St. Petersburg. German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder attends the opening ceremony alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin. The new room uses 6 tons of amber, sourced largely from the Kaliningrad region, the same territory where Königsberg once stood before it was renamed. Visitors today can walk through a chamber that looks, by every account, nearly identical to the one German soldiers tore from the walls of Tsarskoye Selo in 1941. But it is not the same amber. It is not the same gold leaf. It is not the same room that glowed above Peter the Great's court, or hung inside a burning castle as Soviet artillery closed in on Königsberg. The original panels, wherever they ended up, have never been recovered. No confirmed piece, beyond the single mosaic returned in 1997, has ever resurfaced. Investigators, treasure hunters, and historians continue searching mine shafts, cellars, and shipwrecks across the Baltic region to this day, chasing a room that vanished sometime between a bombing raid and a burning castle, sometime between one man's dying testimony and the questions no one ever got to ask him. The original amber room has never been found,